Seems like the sunlight came out a little bit. No rain at the moment. And what's going on today? It's kind of interesting reading this one first. You've read a lot in the news on how various places are dealing with, I guess, drones, military ones, people trying to find ways to counter them. This is kind of interesting. It makes me wonder, is this going to make, for example, officials more on the edge to take out anything they see in the sky? Because this one here says, military to issue verbal or written warnings to officials over failure to foil NK drone infiltrations. South Korea's military has decided to give verbal or written warnings to some 10 uniformed officers in a disciplinary action over a botched operation against North Korea drone infiltrations late last year, informed sources said Wednesday. Following the Joint Chiefs of Staff inspection into the operation over the December 26 incursions, the military made the decision, which critics said appears too lenient, given to the possibility that drones could have been used for spying or lethal operations. The chiefs of the Army's 1st Corps, the Capital Defense Command, the Air Force Operations Command, the Ground Operations Command, and the JCS Directorate of Operations, as well as a senior JCS intelligence official, are to receive written warnings. The military decided to send just a verbal warning to JCS Chairman General Kim Sung-kyum. The North's drone infiltrations have laid bare the South Korean military's lack of readiness against such small crafts that could potentially carry lethal weapons. The military has cited insufficiencies in its threat perception, internal information sharing, equipment and training as contributing factors to the failure to intercept the 5 North Korean drones, including one that penetrated an air security zone close to the office of President Yoon Suk-yeol. It has recently come out with a series of anti-drone plans, including conducting regular drills, building a real-time target intelligence sharing system, and securing kinetic and non-kinetic assets such as drone jamming guns. So again, it makes you wonder here, are people going to be more on high alert there or anything? It doesn't matter what it is. You see a bird, for example, be on high alert, assume it's dangerous, take it down because they don't want to get in trouble. I can just imagine so many false flags as well, but I guess that's just how it is currently with all the news and so forth. Well, things in the air, balloons and so forth, I guess it doesn't end. And this was everywhere here today. Last year was one of the most divisive years ever in the country that I've personally seen because of things, for example, like the government invoking the Emergencies Act, which to me anyway, it sounded like it was meant more for war to stop terrorists, but they were using it against protesters. Some agree with it, some don't. So they had an inquiry and an investigation. Was the government out of line? It says here, Trudeau met threshold to invoke Emergencies Act, commission fines. The wording kind of made it interesting though. This one says the Public Order Emergency Commission has concluded that the federal government met the threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act to bring an end to the Freedom Convoy protests and blockades. Saying here, I have concluded that in this case, the very high threshold for innovation was met. I have done so with reluctance, said Commissioner Paul Rouleau of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to declare a public order emergency in a mammoth 5-volume, 2,000-page report released Friday. It seems in justifying this, the rationale is the person's expressing it's the police fault, for example, for not controlling it, so they had to, I guess, do it in a justified way. It says the commission has concluded that while the Prime Minister met this bar for invoking wide sweeping powers to address the anti-COVID-19 restriction and anti-government Ottawa occupation and blockages at key Canada-US border crossings, this move could have been avoided if it wasn't for a series of policing failures and all levels of government failing to rise above politics. Mixed opinions, and it seems like from a lot of the comments I'm reading, people are saying this person who is in charge of this, I guess, report could potentially be biased. Like this guy's saying what? Justice Paul Rouleau, who has been with the Liberal Party for over 40 years, was appointed by Justin Trudeau to investigate Trudeau's invocation of the Emergencies Act, found it justified. A new low has been achieved. And again, more, I guess, points on how they say it's because of certain people's faults, they just had to do it or it's justified. It says Emergencies Act inquiry's final report points blame at Doug Ford's absence during convoy occupation of Ottawa, saying, quote, I find the province of Ontario's reluctance to become fully engaged at resolving the situation in Ottawa troubling. So would you agree with that? What side would you kind of be on in this regards? Do you think it's justified? Do you think it was corrupt and biased? the other thought I had, which makes me wonder, the whole debate about this is that this, quote, Emergencies Act is supposed to have a really high threshold for you to say, let's do it. Kind of like in the sense of saying, if you're gonna press that nuke button to bomb an entire country and so forth, you better have a darn good reason, hardcore facts and all that to actually press that button, like that type of seriousness. And to my understanding, one of the facts or evidence they used to actually initiate this was some kind of CBC News report, for example, claiming, I don't know, certain people could be dangerous and all that, where in the end, when they asked all the officials, like people in charge of, I don't know, intelligence and all that, they were saying, no, we didn't see any credible, like, quote, threats and so forth. So at the end, that article ended up being nothing. And if that's what they used, for example, to justify this, shouldn't that factor in on whether or not, let's just say, this government was warranted? Because you could argue they said, well, that's what we relied on during the time, but you are set to a higher standard to make sure that what you're reading is factual and all that, not just pressing a button because that's what you really want to do and then you want to try to grab anything there is to justify it. I would think that should be a factor too, where you can't get all in a technicality in that sense, where if, let's just say, that article ended up not being true and you initiated it because of stuff like that, then by default, shouldn't that mean this thing was not justified? That's what I'm trying to think actually on how they rationalized that. Alright, see you guys later.